I can't believe I'm doing this video. I can't believe I read this book. Hey friends, today we're gonna be doing an interesting video. I'm very excited about it. Today I'm gonna be talking about a book that was very near and dear to my heart when I was growing up, specifically in my most formative years, in my younger and more vulnerable years, as Fitzgerald would say. Let's just get into it. It's The Clique by Lizzie Harrison. I was so obsessed with this entire series when I was like in middle school, I don't even think it was early high school, I think it was just middle school. I wanted to be Massey Block, who is the main character of this book, so bad. I would literally look up this is aging me. I looked up like WikiHow articles of like how to be like Massey Block. But basically what this is about a group of 7th graders. 7th graders, can I just impress that upon you for a second? Which means they are 11 and 12 years old. I just want to remind you of that before I get into it. 11 and 12-year-old girls. They are basically rich. Massey Block is extremely rich, who is the main character, the queen bee, the Regina George, if you will, of this Octavian Country Day school. It is about her and her friends, and then this girl, Claire Lyons, enters the scene. She is not wealthy like all the other girls. She basically is cramping Massey Styles. She moves into her family's guest house because her dad was best friends with Claire's dad. Drama ensues. I'm not gonna like talk about like character development or anything like that in this book because it's a book written for middle school girls, and so I'm not gonna be like, well, the character development in this was garbage. Like the plot, is just so, like, I'm not gonna do that because it's not interesting, because of course it's not that good. Like, of course it's not. Like, if you hear the premise, you're gonna know that it's not that good. I'm gonna get into like the petty stuff first, the petty issues that I have with this book, and then move on into the more problematic aspects of it and why I think that if I ever had a daughter and she asked me to read these, I would probably say let's not, especially if she was around the age that these girls are. So let's start. This book is just wild. Like, these girls are 11 and 12 years old. Massey has like her own driver, Isaac. He drives her wherever she wants to go. They're talking about buying like $700 and something outfits, and this is in 2004, so it would probably be like over $1,000 an outfit now, probably more than that. These girls would be buying Gucci belts for like $700 alone. There's a lot of focus on the outfits in this, specifically Massey's outfits, because she plans them. She has this mannequin that like she gets resized every year so that she can be snatched, like plan all her outfits out in advance. But I just want to read you the description of one of the outfits that she has on because I just laughed out loud when I heard it. First aspect of this outfit: satin cargo pants. I can't even imagine a world in which that would be like stylish. Like, was that it in 2003 or whenever this came out? Satin cargo pants? Yeah, there's no color to be said, with an Hermes scarf worn as a belt. That's a thought. Satin cargo pants, Hermes scarf worn as a belt. I need you guys to start building this from the ground up in your brains. And then a white cashmere tank top. Think about what cashmere is. It's an insulating fabric. Usually, they use it for sweaters. So I'm trying to picture a white cashmere tank top and a satin cargo pants with an Hermes scarf belt ensemble, and that does not seem stylish. And mind you, this is an outfit where she's trying to look so snatched. Like, she's like, I gotta make an impression on this girl, like show her, you know, who's boss, let me wear my satin cargo pants. Perfect. What on God's green earth? Then there was another outfit that the rich mom wears that just also made me laugh. The 2000s, we all know, were a terrible year for fashion, but just the descriptions of some of these is real bad. Like, this outfit that I'm about to describe to you is extremely 2000s. The mom is wearing a black juicy sweatsuit and a pearl choker. So for those of you children who are watching that don't know what Juicy is Juicy Couture. I think the perfume is still popular, but Juicy tracksuits were like the height of opulence in the 2000s. Like, if you were wearing a Juicy tracksuit, you were just the height of sophistication. Oh my god, and if you had juicy on the butt in rhinestones, you were like god tier. You were god tier fashionable, and everyone else could only just wish that they were where you were today. But the idea of wearing a black juicy tracksuit and a pearl choker, this is a woman who is middle-aged. I'm screaming. That is just too much. Like that, it's not as shocking as the satin cargo pants. It's just so 2000s. Like this book dates itself so much, and it's just so funny. Specifically, like I'm thinking about how all of the like cool teens, Massey has one, Palm Pilots. I had to like look up what Palm Pilots were to remember to like find in the recesses of my brain what Palm Pilots were. It made me feel ancient. This book made me feel ancient, like I've been through 6 world wars and like was just now coming out the other side. So the next thing that I found really amusing about this book, I think it came out of the fact that like everyone was trying to create new lingo around this time, especially based around like acronyms and initialisms because of like text speak, and it was just easier to talk like that. There's like a whole lingo system in this. She like comes up with words, like specifically I'm thinking of Massey's talking about Claire, who they don't like at this point, to her friend. She's like, she's not a GLU, and they're like, what's a GLU? And she's like, a girl like us. And they're like, oh my god, I love that, Massey. There's a lot of them trying to make lingo their own. Like a lot of times they'll say God like spelled out GAWD, and it's not like a religious thing, it's just like the way that she writes it out, and it's like so cringy. And she'll sometimes do my god, it'll be like EHMAGAWD. It reminds me of the Irma Gerd girl. The lingo in this is too funny. It's fine when a person like is described as funny and then they say funny things, but like there will be points where Lizzie Harrison will like write a joke and she'll be like, and they fucking lost it, like they lost their shit, they were laughing so hard, like this specific thing. Oh my god. So just as I was saying, you don't look like you were sick at all, Alicia gushed. You look amazing, which is another thing they do, AH-amazing. And then Massey says, just wait for tomorrow. Why? Alicia asked with a sly grin. Because I get better looking every day, they shouted in unison at the top of their lungs. They cracked up and high-fived each other. Even Claire had to laugh at that one. Like, she had to laugh because it was just too funny. Like, I get this is for, like, actual children, but just the way that it's written kind of makes me cringe. I loved this so much. I was probably my 12-year-old self was reading that and be like, oh my god, we get better looking every day. But speaking of which, there is this thing that Massey does. Her whole thing with her insults is that she asks a question and then answers herself. Isaac, she's talking to her driver. This is too much for me, because this is like a staple of these books. Like this shit was like in these books a lot. Massey says, Isaac, did I ask you to take my temperature? I can't even get through it. Let me method act this shit out. Isaac, did I ask you to take my temperature? What? Then why are you all up in my butt? And then Alicia's like, oh no, you did. And then it says, the line directly following that is, Dylan, Kristen, and Alicia whooped and hollered in celebration of Massey's never-ending cleverness, which I feel like is kind of tongue-in-cheek from the author, like being like she thinks she's so clever. At least I hope that that's it and it's not like... But I know, again, I know 12-year-old me was like, how am I ever gonna get on Massey's level? I mean, really, Oscar Wilde could never. But the funny thing is that Claire's getting like bullied by these, like straight up just bullied by these girls, and she comes up with one of her own. She says, I was just wondering, are you a female dog? You already know where this is going. And Massey says, what? Why? And then she says, because you're acting like a real bitch. And then Massey says, poor Claire, in her world, that was probably clever. And it's like, Massey, that was way more clever than your fucking thermometer joke. Like, why are you all up in my butt? Like, but what Massey should have said is, well, a bitch is a female dog. A dog is nature. Nature is beautiful. Thank you for the compliment. Oh my god, there's another one, I forgot. Oh my god, a classic. Massey says, Claire, did I invite you to my barbecue? Which, if you grew up in the 2000s, you already know where this is going. Claire says, huh? No. then why are you all up in my grill? It's just so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Like, I loved these. There's like this monologue that Massey does where she's just going off about like how she doesn't want to like hang out with Claire or whatever, and her mom is making her. And I remember for the Clique movie, which yes, there is a movie, and if you haven't seen it, it's golden, you should watch it. There was a competition basically to be in the movie, and you had this monologue that was at the beginning. You had to deliver it and take a video of it and then like submit it to this online thing. And I am 100% sure I did that because I wanted desperately to be Dylan. Dylan is one of the characters in this book. She has a bunch of red hair and she's plus size, although I'm not totally convinced that she actually is. I think she's just plus size by the standards of these children that are in this book. Because there's a lot of comments made about her weight, which I will talk about later. These books were everything to me. I really want to make that clear. Like, I'm making fun of them now, but like I said, this shit was everything. Like, I read every single one. I read all the spin-offs, the prequel. I read all of them. These books made me into the brat I am today. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of just the cringiness of this is like, and cringiness specifically to me, because it's not that bad in the context of the book, but I 100% used to write State of the Unions. The State of the Unions is it's basically like how Massey does a diary, I guess. It basically looks like this. And so she basically writes who is in and out. And so she just is like, whatever's going on in her life, she'll be like, in, Claire, out, Claire, in, tights, out, dresses, whatever. Like, whatever's going on, it's relevant to the story usually. I definitely did that. I definitely wrote State of the Unions. I called them State of the Unions. I wrote in whatever friend I liked at the moment, out whatever friend that was annoying me. When I'm telling you I tried to base my life off of this book, like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I really wanted my life to be like this, which is just very harmful. And I'm gonna actually, it's a great segue into getting into why I think this book is actually really harmful for teen girls. I know that it was written in the 2000s, but that's still not an excuse. Like, just because it was written in the 2000s doesn't mean it's not harmful for the demographic that it is marketed towards, and I'm gonna get into why. So the biggest problem that I have is the way that the girls treat each other, specifically the way that Dylan is treated. Again, I don't think that she's actually plus size. I think she's plus size by the ridiculous and gross standards of this novel, but some of the stuff that's said about her is just like so harmful, and it's passed off as like a joke or normal. They kind of were honestly like disturbing. Like, I was thinking about me reading this at that age when I was plus size. I was a plus size child. Just thinking about reading that as someone who looked like me, it was very upsetting. The focus on weight is really weird in this. I'm gonna talk about Dylan a little bit, and I'm also gonna talk about the way that Massey is described. Massey says she can't go shopping with her friends basically on Labor Day, and Dylan says, who's gonna tell me if I look fat when I try stuff on? First of all, insinuating that Massey would tell her that she looked fat when she tries stuff on. Also, reminder, she's 11 or 12 years old. So there's that. But she says, who's gonna tell me if I look fat when I try stuff on? And Alicia says, the mirror. Kristen laughs, who's one of the other friends, and Dylan is like, Massey, please don't leave me with them. And it says Dylan joked. And it's like, that's some seriously shitty thing for your friend to say. Like, the mirror is gonna tell you look fat if your other friend is not there to tell you you look fat at 11 or 12 years old. It's just like thinking about me reading that. And again, this book is marketed towards 11 and 12-year-olds. Here's another example of, again, fat shaming, but also just like classism, which is rampant in this book because obviously it's about these rich ass 11 and 12-year-olds. Massey says, what's so hard about buying a house? Are they poor? She said poor the same way her mother said fat. And there's a lot of mention of Dylan being on a diet, of her like family all going on a diet together. She has like these special lunches. It's a zone diet, which I don't even know if they still do that, but there's zone diet, which is basically they send meal plans to your house and you have to eat these like basic ass chicken breasts. And her friends are always making fun of her or like commenting on her weight, or it's like a big topic of conversation that's never really dealt with in a healthy way. So continuing just to talk about Dylan really quick. Dylan was the character that I personally identified with the most because she had red hair, which I had red hair at the time. And like she was a bigger like plus size girl, and it was made like aware, and the representation of that was that she's always on a diet, calling herself fat. Her friends are calling her fat and making comments about her body. It's really upsetting to me now. Like, I didn't think too much about how it would have affected me when I was a child, when I was literally reading these at 11 and 12, but reading it now, it's like very disturbing. It's disturbing that this was like who I was thinking of as being myself. She was being viewed as like the fat girl, never anything else. I feel like she never had any other personality traits except being clumsy and fat and like awkward. It upsets me. And like speaking about just like the way that like girls' bodies are talked about in this book is also very disturbing in general. Alicia specifically, Alicia is another one of the girls in like the clique. She's like developed breasts more quickly than the other girls. Like she has big boobs. And they're always making comments about her boobs, which is very uncomfortable to me because they're 11 and 12. And like I get that that's something that girls are thinking a lot about at that age because it just is like a symbol of growing into a woman. But it's just disturbing to me. It's disturbing to like talk about. And so they make fun of her boobs all the time. I specifically remember that in like later books too. It comes up in this one a little bit, but it's definitely there in later books. There are so many like small comments about the girl's body. Like specifically they'll talk about Massey and they'll say something about her as thin. Like a lot of times they'll say that her arms are thin. They'll be like, oh, it's on her thin wrist, or she's holding her Prada bag on her thin arm. And she's like the epitome of what everyone wants to be in this book and what you would kind of expect other girls would want to be as they're reading this. Like I personally wanted to be Massey when I was reading this. And there's a part later where she's like, oh, I love gummy bears, but like I hate what they do to my thighs, which again, she's 11 and 12 years old. I just don't like how they're treating each other. Like they're so mean to each other, which is, I mean, not unrealistic for the way that girls are in middle school, that everyone is in middle school. People are terrible in middle school. But at the same time, like, these books are for that age group. And so to make it seem like that's normal, like, there's a part at the end, too, where, like, the girls are texting each other about Dylan. She, like, puts her hair behind her ear, and she has a lot of hair, so, like, her ear folds over, and they're, like, texting each other in the same car as Dylan about her. They're making fun of her, and she sees the text and then she's just like, ah ha ha ha, you guys are so funny. Every time they straight up bully each other, they just laugh it off, and it's just so harmful because they'll say something so mean to each other, and Massey will, like, her inner monologue will be like, I just love these girls, we're just sisters and blah blah blah. And so it like normalizes this being just straight up awful to each other. So I know that you're probably thinking like, well, it's realistic for them to act like that and be mean to each other. And also it's very possible that Lizzie Harrison could be making fun of these things, making fun of the way that like people are so fat phobic and the way that people are so obsessed with wealth and materialism. That's not how this book reads, especially with like subtle mentions of these girls' bodies. Like I said, with Massey's thin wrist and her thin arm carrying her Prada bag, like it just doesn't read that way to me at all. And even if it was a like sort of parody on this sort of culture, this book is aimed at 11 and 12-year-old girls who are not going to understand the nuances of that. I certainly didn't. I just wanted to be rich. I wanted to buy Prada bags. I felt like I was not as cool as these girls because I couldn't afford things like that, which is where you get into these issues. And I would read about the only character that I identified with being bullied and calling herself fat and hating herself and being on a diet at 11. So I think these books are problematic. I would not let my daughter read these. There's no consequences for Massey's actions, really. It kind of just sells the fact that like if you're rich, beautiful, and thin, then you can really just get away with anything. I would be interested to read the rest of the series. I didn't not enjoy reading this just because it brought me back. It just kind of made me sad to think about little old 11-year-old me reading this and feeling like shit about myself. I'm interested in making more videos like this where I talk about books from my childhood that are kind of not good. Books that I like loved as like a teen and stuff, because I read a lot of books like this where and I think that they were really popular when I was growing up, of like rich kids. Like there were the Gossip Girl books, there was A-List, I think was the book, and like The Hills, of course, the reality TV show where we were just watching rich people do rich stuff, which is kind of what Instagram is now. I just got real heated about this because, again, I thought about myself reading this at that age, and it just made me kind of sad. That's my review of The Clique. I'm sorry it got kind of like depressing towards the end. The beginning was the fun part. I probably should have sandwiched the sad stuff in the middle, but it is a ridiculous read if you're capable of higher thought and just knowing that like there's a lot of problematic elements to these books. I think you might find it funny. I've definitely found some parts funny. It's just so dramatic. Thank you for watching. This is kind of a wild one. Tell me if you want more videos like this. We'll see. Bye!